Hi friends, my name is Amanda and this is AceKreates. In today's video, I have my trusty notebook where I document everything related to yarn and crafting, and I am going to share with you my 2023 stats and talk you through my 2024 goals. Let's get into today's video. So I will be looking down a little bit. So if you see me looking down, because I want to make sure that I cover everything for you. So I started documenting my stats in early 2023. I started getting back into crochet in March and April of 2023. And I had been following Leslie from Knit California, and I saw her journal, and so I decided to use just one of my old I did an attempt at bullet journaling in 2018, and so I had quite a bit of this journal left, and so I started just tracking pretty much everything in terms of content for crafting. And I really fell in love with the way she kind of tracks things on a monthly basis. And so I pulled from that and started keeping track of things, bit by bit, much like she did. At first, it kind of evolved over the time. At first, it was just like one page, and I was just tracking the projects I was working on, when I started, when I finished, yarn purchases, acquisitions, destashes, used. And then it slowly evolved into like a 2-page spread per month, to where it's kind of currently sitting. I didn't do it currently for January, but for December, I have like a socials page where I keep track of things like my ideas, my social growth, any future ideas I might have. I have a spread for my knitting and crochet makes where I kind of just go through what I'm working on currently, when it was started, when it was finished, if it was finished, the acquisitions, the yarn part. A weekly snapshot, which kind of goes through my goal setting for the week and what I hope to accomplish. And then I have various pages in here for things like projects, notes for videos. So like I usually do at least one page dedicated to my monthly roundup podcast, where I go through everything I worked on that month and talk you through that, usually showcase some finished objects and the like. For 2024, I've changed it a little bit. For January, I don't have a socials page, but I'll eventually kind of get that back in. I'm just testing things out because I saw Leslie's video for 2024 and I really wanted to start a whole new journal. But that seemed wasteful. I had quite a bit of this journal left. So I'm going to start a new journal next year. And this is kind of my layout right now for January. Again, just going through the projects, the cues that I want to work on, yarn in and out, any projects I finished, my weekly goals. I've also started tracking my knits. I didn't think I was going to do this, but I also really want to make sure I'm wearing my knits, because it's like, what's the point of making all these if I'm not wearing them all the time? So January's not really that accurate. I know I've worn like my Dahlia cardigan pullover, or Dahlia cardi, just more than once. It's kind of like my house sweater I usually use. And I just finished my sweater weather test, so I've been wearing that. That will come in the next podcast update. You'll get to see that. But that's kind of just how I organize my knitting and crocheting, and I just find I really like the physical writing things down. I know I could do this electronically, and I do keep my stash organized electronically, but I just really like how this works, and I like how it evolves, and I really want to make my 2025 journal a little bit more like Leslie's this past, what she's doing for 2024. So I look forward to kind of starting a new journal next year. Like for example, I just cast on a new project, and so I creatively borrowed from her in terms of her project pages. I have some notes for podcasts, that kind of thing. So all that said, all that being said, because of the way I was tracking, I was able to get some stats for 2023 that I wanted to share with you, so that as I was goal setting, it was really helpful for me to kind of review these stats. And so let's go over them. So the first stat is that I completed 16 projects that used 47 skeins. I was gonna count and try to tally up yards. That was too much work. In my stash, 81 skeins came into stash and 83 skeins went out. So that's pretty cool. I was actually net negative for 2023. I didn't think I would be, but I think it also helped that I had a few project cast on in like November and December, and I count something out of my stash when it's cast on for a project. So that's why you see a discrepancy between the 47 used versus the 83 out of my stash. I actually will have quite a few projects that I just completed in January, and one that's still on my hooks. The Fairbanks shawl is still on my hooks, and that has 17 skeins total because I'm counting minis as just a skein. And so I will have a higher number now next year of skeins completed, I think. So of the 16 projects, and hopefully the math adds up here. If not, I don't pretend to be a math person, although I was, but math has worsened with age. But so of the 16 total projects, I did 5 cowls and 4 shawls. So a lot of neckwear. I generally use them as these accessories as more of like stylized pieces, like a plain tank top or t-shirt or something, and then an item on top. So I have several cowls and shawls that I use. I also made 2 scarves, 2 tops. So those weren't sweaters, but they were like tank tops or tees. So I did the Summertime Tank by Tony Lipsy and the Lonnie Crop by Courtney Clark. I knit a hat. Technically I did 2, but I didn't include it in that count. I made another baby hat crocheted when we were in Seattle. But I knit a baby Oswald hat, and then that was completed in December. And then I crocheted 1 sweater. So hopefully that all adds up to 16. If it doesn't, don't hold it against me. Another interesting fact is I destashed 13 skeins of yarn. So you'll see that kind of come back around for some of my 2024 goals. So now that we've done this kind of brief overview of what I did in 2023 and those stats, I wanted to talk you through my goals for 2024. My goals break down into 5 different categories. So the first being yarn, the second being skills, the third being project, fourth being yarn festivals, and the 5th being AceKreates. So first, let's talk about yarn. So once again, I want to be net negative in 2024. So that means more yarn has to go out than come in. I'm not putting myself on a yarn ban. I don't believe in that. I am fortunate enough to be in a position, if I want yarn, I can get yarn, but I also want to be more mindful in my consumption. And you'll see in an upcoming video, I talk through my top 12, and all 12 of them are going to come from my stash. So I wanted to make sure that when setting some goals for this year that I was focusing on my stash and not just habitually acquiring yarn. If you do that, that's fine. that's just, for me, I wanted to be just a little bit more mindful in my yarn consumption and my yarn purchase habits, and realizing I really only have this space to work with. Technically, if you ask my husband, I have a little space in the closet, in our main closet, but I'm going to be working on that this year. So, but for the most part, I'd like to keep my yarn in these two cupboards. And so that's why I really want to have a net negative stash. I also don't really plan, I mean, these things could change, but in the next few months, I don't really, there's one of my local yarn stores is going to have a trunk show for one of the vendors that I saw at the SoCal Fiber Fair, and I really had a bunch of FOMO on that, so I may get some yarn from that trunk show, but I don't really have any big plans to purchase yarn in the next few months. I really want to save that energy for flock and get, you know, that energy and budget for flock, because I plan on going again, and that will come back into the fiber festivals, but more towards the second half of the year. I really want to focus on the items that I want to create this year out of stash, and then focus on some more acquisitions later on in the year. Again, if I break all those rules, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if I don't do net negative either, but this is kind of what I'm going into the year with, this goal in mind. I was surprised that I was actually able to make it net negative last year. So I'm giving myself a good pat on the back for that, and hopeful that I can do that again in 2024. So my second kind of yarn related goal, like I mentioned, was that the top 12 are coming from stash. And so all 12 of my top items this year are going to come from stash. Now, that doesn't mean I'm just making 12 items, but 12 of the items are coming from stash. So the third kind of goal under yarn that I really want to focus on is destashing yarn that I am not in love with. If you saw my video on the 5 things that I'm doing to get myself ready for 2024 crafting and all things crafting and yarn related, you'll remember that destashing was a really big priority for me. So I really want to go through and make an effort to list yarn on the Discord server that I'm part of, on Ravelry, perhaps Facebook Marketplace, and some other areas that would help me kind of lessen the number of yarn and recoup some of the cost in purchasing it. Some of the yarn I'm just not in love with anymore, or I bought it early on in my kind of yarn related journey, and it's just not what I want to use now. My yarn collection, I really would like it to gear a lot more towards making myself and loved ones handmade items, like, and accessories and garments and things like that. There will still be a place in my yarn collection for non-wool related yarn, like cotton, like acrylic, but I would like those to be just a smaller portion of my collection instead of taking up quite a bit of space. Because as you can see, or maybe you can't see, but I can see some of this, you know, like I have a bunch of Hue and Me, although I will probably keep that. I have a bunch of Lion brand and random stuff from like Joann's and Michael's, and I'd really like to rehome some of this and make sure that I'm keeping what I know I want to keep and use for future projects, and what I know I'll never touch. So if you're interested, hit me up on Instagram. So the next area that we're going to cover in terms of goals for 2024 is skills. So the first thing is I would love to continue to expand my Tunisian crochet skill set. Each project that I've been doing, like, is one new thing for me. as I'm kind of going through my Tunisian crochet journey. I really love it. I've mentioned this probably a million times before on the channel that it's a great in-between between knitting and crochet. It gets the fabric a little bit more like knitting, but it's that trusty, tried and true crochet hook, and not having to worry so much about drop stitches, because that's the bane of my existence when it comes to knitting. Is I'm so paranoid about dropping stitches because I don't know how to fix it, although I'm working on that. So that's one of my main goals in the crochet realm, but I have a lot of knitting goals this year. And this is not it's not just a knitting channel. This is just my journey into fiber arts. But this year I'm going to be heavily focused on expanding my knitting skill set. Again, every project I'd like to learn something new. And there's two key things that I want to be able to take away this year when it comes to, actually probably three now, but I want to knit a sweater and I want to knit a garment. They could be two separate items. They could be the same thing, but as you'll see in a future video with my top 12, I have a lot of tees on that, knitted tees and a couple knitted sweaters. So hopefully I'll be able to check them off as two separate things. But I really want to focus on knitted garments this year because I've done a couple of accessories. I've done the Sophie shawl. I've done the Oslo hat. I've done a cowl. I really want to get brave and start leaning into garments and just start practicing and doing it. The third skill set that I really want to do under skills, actually fourth. Yeah. The fourth skill set under skills that I really want to focus on is fixing my mistakes in knitting and figuring out how to read my knits so that I can understand how best to fix it. I've successfully fixed a few drop stitches and I've progressively gotten better. The first time I did it, I was like, just frogging back a couple rows and then having to put things back on needles. Now I've figured out how to at least fix stockinette with a crochet hook. And so I just want to keep expanding on that skill set. So the next kind of category we're going to cover is projects. So my first goal is to complete all 12 of my Make 12 in 2024. And also on top of that, I'm going to make 24 in 2024. So I have 12 items I know I want to knit or crochet in 2024. And I'm making a video on that so you can see everything that I'm going to hopefully get through this year. But I also know that there's other things that I'm going to be working on as well. In fact, I have an Oslo hat, a sweater that I just finished that will be part of that 2024. That will be part of the 24 and 2024. I have a shawl on my hook right now, so that's a third item. I know I have some hats in mind. We want to make like matching family hats for the three of us because my Oslo hats aren't matching right now. And so I'm gonna have to like stash dive and see what would work best that I have enough quantity of to get 3 matching hats. And so I think it's kind of a stretch goal because I completed 16 items in 2024, but I also didn't start crocheting again until March. And so that was 2 months really missing of items that I might have gotten closer to 18 or 19 had I been making the whole year. I also went through periods of like where it just took me longer to work on things that if I just kind of focused my energy a little bit more, I could have gotten more done last year. So 24 and 24 is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to join in on the challenge anyways and not kick myself if I don't finish it. So my next kind of sub goal of the projects area is to wrap up some old whips. So I have several whips. You've seen my graveyard video, hopefully. If not, I'll link it below, where I have some old whips that I really want to get off the needles. Some of them are really easy and could just be like, finished a little bit. Some of them are going to be a little bit more time intensive and I'm going to have to really dedicate the time. But I want to finish up some old whips that were cast on either in 2023 or 2022, and really figure those out and get them done and off the hooks. Two of them for sure. I have an adventurous scarf that I started for a family member that by the next time I see them, I don't know when, I'm going to Michigan at least in November, but I might go again, who knows, earlier. So I want to be able to finish that up for them. And then I also have the Lynn tank from Courtney Clark. I finished kind of like the bust, but again, the stitching, I noticed a mistake and I didn't really want to have to go back as that far. So I had to put it in timeout. And when I'm ready to kind of reconnect the body again and just start going in the round, crocheting in the round, and I have that kind of mental headspace, because I'd really like another take in my handmade wardrobe, so I can wear it in the summer. So another goal that I have is to work on projects that I've purchased the pattern for. Patterns are relatively inexpensive, and I have, it's really easy to just like, oh, I like that pattern, so I'm going to purchase it. And so I really want to focus on some of the patterns that I purchased, and make sure that I've knit or crocheted them up. So a lot of my top 12 is that, and so I really want to make sure that I'm focusing on my purchase patterns, so that way I can get my money back essentially by having a completed item. I want to work on some gift knits for this year. I did one for my mom last year. My sister has asked for a white shawl as well. So I don't know if I have white yarn already. And I don't want to do the same shawl that I did for my mom. So I have to see if I have some white yarn or something that would work, because I think I could do ivory. I think my sister would be okay with ivory, but we'll figure that out. So I have some gift knit items that I'd like to make. The Oslo hat. We're hoping to go to India later this year, so who knows, I might be able to get some gift knits for family in India. And so that is it for my projects kind of subcategory for my goals in 2024. So yarn festivals is the next category, and I want to go to Flock. I'm going to go to the SoCal Fiber Festival if they hold it again, which I really hope they do. And then one more. And I don't know when or where that might be, but I really wanted to go to Rhinebeck weekend, but I know that like that fiasco with Woolen Folk happened. I'm hoping some of the other Rhinebeck adjacent festivals like India Entangled still happen, or Cakepalooza still happen. So it might be Rhinebeck. I am also trying to spread them out. Unfortunately, right now it looks like they're all in the second half of the year, because Flock is in August. Rhinebeck, if I go to that, would be in October, and SoCal Fiber Fest would be in November. I know there's Maryland Sheep and Wool and DFW. I forget when DFW, but I felt like that was too close to Flock, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'll go to DFW. Who knows? I'd like to explore some other fiber festival. Our family wants to travel a little bit more this year, so if we can kind of do a weekend in Dallas and go to a fiber festival, it's like a two in one. So that's my goal this year for fiber festivals. And then my fifth kind of and final area that I want to focus on this year is AceKreates. I have a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you are not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing to my channel. And I also want to get to 500 subscribers or followers. That's what they are. They're followers on Instagram. On Instagram, I want to get to 500 followers. And it's interesting. I've noticed some of the content that works really well for each channel. Instagram is definitely slower moving than YouTube, but I didn't really take Instagram serious in the beginning. So I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional about Instagram. This is all still fun for me. This is not a business. It's not a side gig or anything. I'm not making money from any of this. This is just fun and me creating a community of like-minded individuals who like yarn and like to knit and crochet and talk about it and all of that, and just make more yarn related friends. And so again, consider subscribing if you're not already subscribing. So that's it, folks. That is my 5 areas that I'm focusing on this year in terms of my 2024 goals. What goals do you have in 2024? If you don't have any goals, that's okay too. Just for me as a task-oriented person, it kind of keeps me on track and it keeps me kind of moving along instead of feeling kind of like a little bit overwhelmed, because having a yarn collection can overwhelm some. And so wanting to just make sure that I'm intentional and going through and using my yarn and making objects that I want to wear or give, all of that. And so this was really a great exercise for me to kind of put things down on paper and set goals and intentions for 2024. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention my knitted outfit is the Loveland Light. No, it's not knitted. It's Tunisian crochet. My handmade outfit of the day or handmade item of the day, because it's not, whatever. My handmade shawl here is the Loveland Light shawl by Tony Lipsy, and I did it in berry cashmere. It's a little smaller than I would like because the berry cashmere is only 400 yards in a skein. It came out a little bit tinier than I would have liked. Also at the time, I was not in any headspace to do Tunisian purl towards the end. So yeah, I might make another of this someday, but I really loved it. I love the knit stitch, Tunisian knit stitch. So yeah, that's my outfit of the day, of the video. Thank you, friends, so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye now.